Everybody, and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports, and some very interesting updates throughout the week as World Rugby released a span of new trial laws and adjustments to the original laws, and a couple in particular which have raised quite a few eyebrows and created quite a stir because they have directly addressed the fact that ERASMUS was currently running around last year as a water boy during the Springbok matches, with the result of a technicality with him being the director of rugby, not the head coach. He was allowed under World Rugby laws to carry water and to be on pitch side during Springbok games, and it caused quite a lot of controversy. And you've got to have a laugh at a couple of the articles that have appeared in overseas media with it saying that it scarred the series because apparently a former head coach running around with a bottle of water is the biggest rugby controversy we've seen in the last how many years. But what's actually quite interesting, and I think it's a pity because once again, and World Rugby always being so naive and blind when it comes to these things, we in that a particular amendment, we've actually lost our what I think is hopefully going to be quite a cool rule change stuff like that. But before we look into what the rule changes are and how Rassie Erasmus has responded, because he's looking like he's ready to go to war against World Rugby. Please do smash like on the video and subscribe to the channel as well. So obviously Rassie Erasmus is still currently banned from being involved in match day activities, which means that he can be involved in preparation stuff like that, but he can't be. He returned to work earlier this year, but he can't be involved in match day activities for majority of the rest of the year. Really, I think it's the outgoing series where his ban in theory, I think it might come to an end, but. The big thing was obviously the whole WATERBOY thing. And now, under previous World Rugby regulations, it stipulated that a head coach could not carry water. Now, Rassie Erasmus, having stepped into director of rugby and no longer being the head coach, with that being the Jacques Nienaber, that was a bit of a loophole in that. And World Rugby have literally addressed it directly. And I think it becomes quite problematic where World Rugby are changing entire law to target a specific person, and not a specific incident, a specific person. And I think that's quite dangerous because, for example, there has been a look at, for example, there was a medic recently in a game who verbally abused a referee basically, and he was charged for it and stuff like that, and they've had to look at that. Now, that for me is an incident. And you sit there thinking, right, well, how did that happen? How do we avoid that? Whereas there were no incidents per se with Rassie Erasmus running water. People just didn't like it for whatever reason. So to then change it, and again, I don't think it was really worth changing. I don't think it was that big of an issue to change it. I think it sort of shows you where World Rugby is at the moment, where there are so many issues within the game, and yet we are looking to create a law amendment specifically to make sure that specific person can operate in that specific capacity simply because we don't like it. But in terms of what the laws are actually saying, and this is going to be for all competitions, including Rugby World Cup 2021, that's the Women's World Cup, Rugby World Cup 2023, or standalone matches that begin after 1st July, the following adjustments to Law 6 will apply. For medics, they can only provide water to players who they are treating, cannot field or touch a ball when it is live in play, and if they do, it is a penalty kick. So, for example, if like when the ball sort of goes out or anything like that and medics interfere, there it can be resulting in a penalty for the opposing team. They also cannot bring on water for just general people. It's only if they are treating somebody who is down and injured, and I think quite importantly, has been called onto the field by the referee. Additional personnel is the next section. Teams are permitted up to 2 dedicated water carriers. Water carriers cannot be, and again, you look at how directed it is, a director of rugby or head coach. That's where they are. It's literally basically saying it cannot be Rassie Erasmus. And again, they've now sort of gone hung up on a term or a specific role or a name for a role. And it's going to be quite interesting. So we'll look at the Rassie Erasmus response in terms of how there's just another loophole that you can get around it. But I think that this is the important part, and it has been missed in the entire thing. Is in elite level rugby, water carriers will only be allowed to enter the field of play twice per half at points agreed with the match officials. This can only be done during a stoppage in play or after a try has been scored. A person bringing on a kicking team may carry 1 bottle for the kicker's use only. These water/T carriers must remain in the technical zone at all times before entering the field of play as permitted. Any attempt to field or touch the ball while it is live in play, including the technical zone, will be sanctioned with a penalty kick for the opposition. No one should approach, address, or aim comments at the officials, save for the medics in respect of treatment of a player. Should this happen, the sanction will be a penalty kick. And then players on the field may access water behind the dead ball line or from within their technical zone at any time. So the reason for these has been said that it is to improve the flow of matches and by reducing unnecessary stops without compromising welfare. Now, I 100% agree with that, and I think we can all agree that law changes have been needed for a while to try and speed up the play. We can't have rugby matches taking over 2 hours long to complete. It's ludicrous, how long games are taking. So I very much welcome the idea that there are going to be specific occasions where you can have water, but otherwise no water at all. And that, medics and stuff like that are only allowed to sort of say from a medical side of view, he needs to be replaced, or he needs an HIA, for example, or we need an ambulance or whatever. That is where the line is being drawn. So there'll obviously be no addressing match officials from any sort of coaches, water boys, medics, etc., as should be the case. But also, more importantly, the fact that all these sort of people are going to be involved have to stay in the technical area, which removes the capacity for people, first of all, for speaking to match officials to say, even if it's just things like hands in ref or whatever, they can't address the referee at all. But also to not child instructions. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Now, this is more than just a South African issue. I think people forget that the idea of somebody quite important carrying water is not a new one. It's not something the Springboks have done. That the other teams haven't. Neil Jenkins, for example, often runs the water for the Wales and did so for the Lions. Now he is their kicking coach. So he's part of the coaching staff running water. Now the Boks were quite clever in the fact that they managed to get around it in terms of Jacques Nienaber being a qualified physio and therefore he's part of the medical side on the match day. But I mean, so there's always going to be a loophole and stuff like that. So I think genuinely, I think it's quite a good idea to try and limit the amount of stoppages and to try and reduce the time that is being wasted. We saw recently with a couple of the overseas teams coming down in the URC and especially at altitude, slowing the games down at Loftus and at Ellis Park to try and help deal with the altitude, to try and remove that sort of fitness aspect. So I'm very much welcoming the fact that we're going to have laws that are going to try and speed up the flow of games. But when you start putting in a law which says, and I quote, water carriers cannot be a director of rugby or head coach, you're going after a single person. And I think that that's problematic because I think that law should be there to address issues and should be addressed incidents, not to address people. So if you don't want somebody it's like ERASMUS involved, then say that water carriers cannot be part of the coaching staff or within certain structures. Do we need to start having like neutral water carriers? Is that where we're going with this? Because it's a slippery slope. And ERASMUS responded to this, and he said, and I quote from his tweet here, was just talking to my line manager yesterday. She also thought director of rugby has such a formal ring to it. We agreed that director of coaching would be so much better title for me. Laka can't wait. And well, I mean, it's brilliant. It's classic Erasmus because he just loves taking the piss. But he's got a good point. If they were to just announce a new title, just change the name of it, he would then once again be allowed to carry water. And I think that's the biggest issue is that, and if he does that and then they change it again, you can see they're very clearly targeting one person. So if you want to remove coaching staff from being involved in pitch side, you've got to be much broader than just cannot be a director of rugby and a head coach to address a specific individual. Address the entire problem. Don't try and go after one individual because it looks very pointed, and I just think that they've got bigger things to worry about than ERASMUS. But let me know what you think of the new laws and the situation down in the comments below. Please do smash like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. We'll be live this weekend for some URC. We'll hopefully get our live shows going once again as we sort of build towards the international season, which begins in about 6 weeks' time, which is very exciting. But until then, please do keep safe, and I'll chat to you soon.